definitely been able to have big games during the playoffs. So how has it been able to showcase that, when your first time around in the playoffs?
It's been great. For me, just like I said, trying to be aggressive each and every night. Credit to my teammates for finding me and putting me in great spots to be successful. So for me, it's just all funny games. I've been waiting to get here my whole career, so I'm enjoying each and every second of it.
On today's show, the Mavericks take a 2-1 series lead over the Thunder thanks to another incredible performance from P.J. Washington. Kyrie Irving closes the show, and Luka Doncic guts it out once again. This is Inside the Mavs. Welcome to Inside the Mavs, presented by Aura. I'm your host, Kevin Gray, Mavericks Pre and Post Game host on the Dallas Mavericks Radio Network. Appreciate you joining me here for the latest episode of Inside the Mavs. If you're watching this on my YouTube channel at Kevin Gray Sports, make sure you like and comment on the video. Let me know how you're feeling about the Mavericks after they take a 2-1 series lead over the Oklahoma City Thunder. And if you're listening to the podcast, give it a 5-star rating, write a review for it while you're there. And you can find it on iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify, and wherever you get your podcasts for free. And you can follow me on Twitter at Kevin Gray Sports. The Dallas Mavericks take a 2-1 lead over the Oklahoma City Thunder with their 105-101 win at home in game number 3, as the Dallas Mavericks win their second straight game in this series as they look to take a commanding 3-1 lead against the Thunder when they get back on the floor on Monday night. And you heard P.J. Washington at the beginning of our show. For him, another fantastic performance after having 29 points in game 2, where he knocked down 7 3-pointers. He backs it up again with another 27-point game, 19 points in the first half to keep the Mavericks in it as they were down by 1 at halftime. But Kyrie Irving was able to help close the show in the second half with 14 of his 22 points coming in the second half. A gutsy performance from Luka Doncic, who had 22 points and 15 rebounds as he continues to play through his right knee sprain, ankle injury, back, all the things hurting from Luka Doncic. You'll hear from Luka and also from Kyrie Irving throughout the course of this show. But this is, again, a resilient Mavericks team that was able to utilize another great shot performance from P.J. Washington and also, obviously, from other guys being able to put it together. The Mavericks in this game, when you look at what they were able to do, had double-figure games from P.J. Washington, from Kyrie Irving, Luka Doncic, and also Derek Lively, which we will get to throughout the course of the show because the Thunder decided to play hack-a-lively in the fourth quarter, and Lively made them pay with 5 free throws to be able to help the Mavericks seal the deal late in the fourth quarter. But we'll get to that throughout the course of our Inside the Mavs show today. But for the Mavericks, they were able to dominate on the offensive glass as they out-rebounded the Thunder 15-6 on the offensive boards. They were able to out-rebound them overall 48-41. As we know, the Thunder, one of the worst offensive rebounding teams in the league. The Mavericks were able to take advantage of that, but more importantly, holding the Thunder to just 6 offensive rebounds in game number 3, which means this Mavericks defense was collecting rebounds and finishing off possessions the way that they needed to. And in the fourth quarter, particularly bottling up Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, who, yes, had 31 points in the game 3 loss, but at the same time was held to just 6 points in the fourth quarter. And the aggressiveness at which P.J. Washington played this game, because that's where it all starts. I tweeted it out at Kevin Gray Sports on Twitter, and I said, look, the guy that I'm going to be watching going into game number 3 is P.J. Washington, coming off that 29-point performance that he had in game 2, where he knocked down 7 3-pointers and really was the story from his offensive scoring standpoint in game 2. Role players tend to at times disappear after having a great game in a series. So for me, with Luka and Kyrie shouldering the offensive load, Could PJ Washington back it up once again and be able to have another shooting night that allowed the Mavericks to stay in it offensively? And he answered the call once again, going 11 of 23 from the field, was 5 of 12 from downtown, had 19 points in the first half of the second straight game, 27 overall, was a +5, providing both the defense and the offense needed to help stem the tide for the Mavericks as they were able to get things going more so, especially in the second half when Luka and more so Kyrie were able to put their stamp on this game. But it was the aggressiveness at which Washington came out to start the game. Very first possession of the game, gets a dunk on Chet Holmgren, playing out of the post and attacking the rim off the dribble, allowed him to get a floater. You saw that a little bit later on in the game as well. When this team is getting that kind of aggression from Washington on the offensive end, things really change for the Mavericks and how they can score against their opponent, because we know that Luka, especially when he is healthy, can put pressure on you as a 3-level scorer to be able to get to the rim, finish in the mid-range, and when he's really right, knocking down 3-pointers. Kyrie Irving, as a maestro handling the basketball, can be able to get inside to finish among the tall trees, but also can finish in the mid-range as well, something that you started to see, especially in the fourth quarter, where he put Jalen Williams in the spin cycle for a beautiful jumper off of a turnaround there. But for PJ Washington, his length, his size, and athleticism, particularly in this series where the Thunder are a little bit undersized, he can take advantage of that. And one thing that you saw in game 2 that carried out early on in game number 3 was playing Washington out of the post and allowing him to be able to go to work on the block and be able to make some things happen from an offensive standpoint. And to the Mavericks' credit, they were able to work through him to really be able to establish some things offensively. And you saw that, not just the ability to play off the block, but also continuously knocking down 3-pointers. You say, Kevin, in that first quarter, when you look at the Mavericks and what they did, they were only 1 of 8 from 3. The 1 3 that they had was PJ Washington, who made it 18-11 with about 5.5 minutes left in that first quarter. And the Mavericks, who saw themselves miss the final 5 shots of the first period, led at the end of 26-23 after the Thunder closed the final 3 minutes of that first quarter on an 8-2 run. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander had 9 points for the Thunder, but they only shot 30% from 3 and 41% overall from the field. But again, this was about the aggressive attacking mindset of Washington and him establishing himself early and often, and Kyrie Irving, as the game went on, continuing to allow the game to come to him. And then as you go toward the second quarter, you saw what the Thunder were able to do. When I had Mark Followell on the podcast going into game 3, one of the things that we discussed is the fact that the Thunder had the ability to walk you down pretty quickly on the offensive end. And that's exactly what they did to begin the second quarter. In that first 3.5-minute stretch there, they went on an 11-5 run to take what was a 34-31 lead after a Jalen Williams 3-pointer. Fast forward midway through the first, the Mavericks and the Thunder were tied at 36 after an Aaron Wiggins basket. And one of the things for the Thunder that we've seen throughout the course of this series so far, at times Josh Giddey being played off the floor and Mark Daigneault, the head coach of the Thunder, deciding to go with Aaron Wiggins. You saw in game 3 a little bit Josh Giddey be able to attack Daniel Gafford a little bit off the dribble to be able to finish at the basket a little bit to try to make some things happen, trying to create some much more effectiveness for him when it comes to his ability to play on offense. But this is, again, how good and how deep the Thunder are, that they can mix and match a few players to be able to make things happen from a scoring standpoint. But the Thunder would go on a 7-2 run capped off by a Cason Wallace 3-pointer that had them up 43-38 with 4.5 minutes left in the first half. But again, in a game of runs where we've seen throughout the course of the first 3 games, these teams can go on runs, big-time runs, and one huge one, of course, we'll get to that happen in the third quarter. But in the second quarter, the Mavericks would respond with a 10-2 run to take a 3-point lead capped off by Luka Doncic and one where they led 48-45 with 2 minutes left in the second quarter. And again, PJ Washington opening up the second quarter, knocking down a 3-pointer, this time in the left corner, that would extend the Mavericks lead early on to 29-23 at the outset of the second period. Again, understanding the scouting report and being able to take advantage of those opportunities when they present themselves. We've detailed it throughout the course of this series and up into this series was the fact that the Thunder are willing to give up corner three-pointers. Could the Mavericks be able to take advantage of that and keep the Thunder defense honest? And you've seen that much more frequently over the last couple of games, whether it be Josh Green, PJ Washington, Tim Hardaway Jr., knocking down those open opportunities when they had the ability to do so. Tim Hardaway Jr. even knocking down a three-pointer. We talked about that 11-5 run that the Thunder went on in the second quarter. He was able to stop that run by knocking down a three in the right corner to be able to tie the game at 34 with just under 8 minutes left in the second period. And then Derek Lively, who was able to get the jam off the pick and roll with Kyrie Irving. That had them up at 36-34. Thunder then went on a 7-2 run of their own. And who ended it? PJ Washington with a corner three from the right corner to pull them within 2 at 43-41. So you see what I'm talking about here. Understanding to let the game continue to come to them, but also PJ Washington take advantage of those opportunities to be able to stop runs and end runs by the Thunder, which you're going to see throughout the course of the series and have seen so far. And into the end of the second quarter, we talked about Luka Doncic getting to the rim. He's continued to struggle, obviously, with his health, but has found ways to continue to help the Mavericks win games by doing the other things. He got a nice floater with the hoop and the harm on Chet Holmgren that put the Mavericks in front 48-45. But obviously for Isaiah Joe, he was able to hit a three-pointer at the buzzer at the end of the first half to give the Thunder what was a 52-51 lead. This is after Luka Doncic had drained a three-pointer himself with 8 seconds left in the first half to have the Mavericks up 51-49. But the Thunder would outscore the Mavericks 7-3 in the final 2 minutes, again capped off by that Isaiah Joe three-pointer at the end of the first half as the Thunder led by 1. Mavericks shot just 38.5% from the field in that second period and 36% from three. Thunder shot 60% from three and from the field, with PJ Washington and Luka Doncic each having 8 points and Isaiah Joe having 7 for the Thunder. But again, as the ebbs and the flows of the game happened in the first half, the Mavericks sticking to who they were and being able to execute on the offensive end to really be able to have them within this game. Because if you don't have PJ Washington with his consistency and with the way that he started to play, especially shooting from three and the offensive aggressiveness that we've seen from him now in the last 2 games, you would have been in a world of trouble if you were the Mavericks, knowing what was happening with the Thunder being able to go on those runs. And you had to have those guys like Washington and Hardaway, who was starting to come on in the last couple of games as well, be able to dictate what the Mavericks could do from an offensive standpoint to be able to handle their business from there. And then defensively, making sure that you're trying to keep these guys in front of you, because we know Shai Gilgeous-Alexander can get to the basket. Obviously, for Jalen Williams is a guy that can put the ball on the floor, be able to finish out in transition like you saw in the last couple of games as well. You've got to find ways to value possession and being sure that you're not turning the ball over against this team, but also being efficient with your opportunities on the offensive end. Much more on this as we get into the second half, and we will hear from Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving and how things turned around, particularly in that third quarter, thanks to Josh Green and PJ Washington and Kyrie Irving deciding to close the show beginning in the second half. But before we get there, let's hear from today's sponsor of our video and our podcast, and let's hear from Aura. Today's video is brought to you by Aura. Do a Google search on your name and email address to see how much information comes up about you. I was devastated by the amount of information that I could be seeing searching my name and profile, and I knew then I needed to be protected for not just myself, but also for my family. Data brokers sell your information to scammers, spammers, and anyone else who may want to target you. Your full name, email, home address, health records, your relatives, it's all out there. That's why I've been using Aura, the sponsor of today's video. Aura shows me which data brokers are selling my information and automatically submits opt-out requests for me. Cleaning up my information not only helps reduce the amount of spam I get, but it protects me from hackers who could use this information to help them access my social media accounts, bank accounts, and other sensitive information. Aura also does so much more to protect me and my family from online threats that I can't see. It's really easy to set up, so I don't have to download several different apps to get things like antivirus, VPN, password management, parental controls, identity theft insurance, and more. I get everything at one affordable price. You may already have one of these tools already, but not having Aura is like locking the front door and leaving the back door wide open. Aura is always on, doing the hard work to protect me and my family so I can focus on other tasks with peace of mind. I value my privacy and I value yours. You can go to aura.com/Kevin Gray to start your 2-week free trial. Please see the link in the description. Back here on Inside the Mavs, and thank you to today's sponsor of our video and our podcast in Aura, as the Mavericks take a 2-1 series lead over the Oklahoma City Thunder with a gutsy and resilient 4-point win at the American Airlines Center to be able to have an opportunity to take a 3-1 series lead on Monday night. And for the Mavericks, not only has it been what they've been able to do so far in the series, winning 2 straight games, but the resiliency at which they are playing with and the resolve to be able to withstand what has been taking place in this series, whether it be the physicality. We're seeing questionable plays by the Oklahoma City Thunder, particularly from Lu Dort, who it appeared need Luka Doncic in his right knee when trying to foul him MMA style, and the amount of physicality that we've seen in this series. And one of the things that I want to stop down on when it comes to that physicality, the Mavericks absorbing it, understanding it, and playing through it and with it, especially when you're going to have officials allow the game to be played at a physical nature and pace, that favors your Dallas Mavericks. And they've seen that throughout the course of the second half of the year when they are able to play that physical brand of style. This is something this team has embraced. They are continuing to do so. But you say, Kevin, the amount of physicality that the Mavericks are seeing from the Thunder at times is a detriment, especially for Luka Doncic, who's already dealing with a knee injury, with an ankle injury. You saw the collision that he had with Lu Dort that led to a jump ball that eventually Luka Doncic eventually won. There's a lot of physicality in this series like you saw in the Clipper series in the first round. But give the Mavericks credit for being able to handle it, withstand it, and more importantly, thrive in it. And they've been able to do so now in the last couple of games. But I want you to take a listen to Luka Doncic. Doncic, who had 22 points and 15 rebounds in this game, a gutsy effort that he put forward, just detailing and talking about how much he's playing through and what it means for him to continue to find different ways to win, regardless of how much his body is hurting him right now.
As you said, you're out there battling, going through a lot. Coming off the court, you were clearly laboring. What different parts are hurting?
Everything. In the last play, I split 2 defenders. Obviously, nobody touched me. And, hurt my knee again. But just trying to battle out there, man. We got to win. That's all that matters.
Are you concerned about the aspect that now it's pretty much one day between games? Is that?
I mean, at least today is a day game, so we got a little more rest in the last one. And we had to fly out, so it's a little bit more time. So I need the rest, all the rest I can get.
So you can just hear the physical anguish that he is dealing with to try and get through these games. And we've heard it, whether it was the Clipper series and now going into this series against the Oklahoma City Thunder. If this were regular season games, Luka Doncic would not be playing right now. And I want people to be able to understand, and you understand this as being a Mavericks fan and someone who watches this team and loves this team. And even if you don't watch and love this team and are just a basketball fan, you have to appreciate the toughness, mental and physical, at which Luka Doncic is playing with right now to be able to play through injury and be able to really help this team find different ways to win, especially right now in the postseason. But that gets us to the second half, because the turning point of this game came in the third quarter. The Mavericks down 1 at 52-51 going into the second half. The Thunder open up the first 2.5 minutes of the third quarter on a 9-4 run to extend their lead to 61-55 after a Josh Giddey layup. Overall, it was a 13-4 start for the Oklahoma City Thunder after a Jalen Williams dunk in transition, like we talked about a little bit earlier, his ability to finish out in the break. That means the Mavericks are down 65-55. The Mavericks would then respond with what would be a 16-0 run to eventually take a 6-point lead at 71-65, as the defense was able to turn it up during that period, holding the Thunder to without a basket for 4 minutes. And with 4.5 minutes left in the third, the Mavericks find themselves up by 6, thanks to, again, P.J. Washington knocking down three-pointers, especially in the corner. Daniel Gafford opened up the third quarter with an alley-oop dunk off a Luka Doncic screen and roll. Again, when Luka wasn't being able to score, getting other guys involved, of course, in this game for Luka, was able to have what would be 5 assists to go along with the 15 rebounds that he had. But Luka finding Daniel Gafford, getting the vertical game going at the outset of the third quarter. Then P.J. Washington drills a three-pointer in the left corner. That came with 7 minutes left in the third. And then Washington finishes with the dunk in transition off of a Josh Green assist to pull the Mavs within 2. And then for Josh Green, who was a plus 15 in Game 3, you saw how he has continued to shoot the ball well from the three-point line. You saw it in Game 2 and what he's been able to do to really help this team off the bench. He hits his only three-pointer of the game with 6:12 left in the third. This time, again, in the left corner. You say, Kevin, you sound like a broken record when it comes to these corner threes. The Thunder are allowing the Mavericks to take these corner threes, and the Mavericks are burying them. If you remember, the Mavericks made more corner threes than any team in the league this year. This is what they do, and the Thunder continue to live with the idea that the Mavericks are going to take, and most importantly, the Mavericks are making these threes. But that three-pointer by Josh Green, the only shot that he hit in the game, gave the Mavericks a 66-65 lead, and a lead that they would not relinquish for the entirety of the second half. P.J. Washington then capped off that 16-0 run, knocking down yet another three-pointer, this time in the left corner off of what? A Luka Doncic assist. So when Luka wasn't scoring, he was getting his teammates involved. You saw that in Game 2 in the first quarter where he had 16 points in Game 2, scored or assisted on 24 of the 36 points that the Mavericks scored in that first quarter. But that's when Kyrie Irving, his superstar teammate, began to take over. And this is one of the hallmarks that we've seen from Kyrie Irving during the second half of the year, and it's carried over into the postseason. Kyrie allowing the game to come to him and managing the game, reading the game to have a great understanding of when he needs to pick his spots. And some people have criticisms of the fact that they feel like Kyrie is taking too long to get into the games. You have to remember, Kyrie Irving has been there and done that in championship situations and has a fantastic understanding of what games are dictating to him and how he needs to handle himself in the most important moments of games. And if you don't believe me, you can hear Kyrie Irving himself discuss it and what it means to read the game and understand the game and take over exactly when he needs to.
Kyrie, you had a flurry of baskets there in the fourth quarter, including the left-hand floater to kind of ice the game. I think on the broadcast you said that you had a coach come up to you and say you wish you would have got going a little bit sooner. Just what goes into your mind when you're finally getting it going, and why are you so comfortable in those moments?
It's basketball, man. I think, I've been able to learn that, from people that are sitting on the sideline see different things. So I respect their opinion. But also as a player, as a hooper, who's seen numerous series, who's been in a lot of different battles, who has failed at the highest level, reading the game is just as important as, forcing yourself into things. So for me in the first half, I just felt like there were some opportunities off the pick and roll I could have taken advantage of. I didn't, but it was still a 1-point game, and I think my confidence in my teammates during those stretches goes to ultimate high because I need them and they need me. But I also understand the gravity that I pull, and also utilizing myself as, I don't really like the word decoy at all, but being out there to be ready to make an impact when my number's called. We got guys that score at a very high level. I score at a very high level, but sometimes in playoff games it's not going to be like that. And, one thing that I always like to tell people is just go watch some of the games in the 80s and 90s and 2000s. I don't know how the NBA game has changed in terms of perspective that people see and want to see star players score a bunch of points and force a bunch of stuff. But, you look at some of the greatest teams, that have played and won championships, a lot of guys have been selfless and a lot of guys have been willing to, just read the game and give what the game needs. So if my job is to play defense that night, and that's what I'm geared towards, and I feel like that's what my intention is to get us a win, and that's where it's going to be. It's not going to be, trying to delegate my offensive prowess to force myself into the game. It's going to come, man. I feel like I'm one of the most unguardable people in the world, just like, the rest of my peers feel. It's just the confidence. But in the playoffs, you don't have time to wallow in, the extra thoughts of offense. Defense wins championships,
So Kyrie Irving having a tremendous understanding of allowing the game to come to him and reading that, and that comes with the experience that he's gone through. And that's what you saw particularly play itself out in the second half, where he had 14 of his 22 points in the second half, and you saw it beginning at the end of the third quarter. He drilled a three-pointer off of a Josh Green assist to extend the Mavericks lead to 4 at 74-70 with 3 minutes left in the third. And for the Mavericks to be able to get that kind of offensive output, especially from Kyrie Irving, where the Mavericks saw the Thunder outscore the Mavericks 13-8 in over 3 minutes. But Tim Hardaway Jr., again, continuing to come on in this series, he hit a three-pointer to extend the Mavericks lead back to 4 at 82-78 going into the fourth quarter, as the Thunder would respond by pulling it within 1 at 79-78, outscoring the Mavs 13-8 over a 3-minute period. But the Mavericks got another 8 points for P.J. Washington in that third quarter, and Kyrie Irving beginning to heat up going into the fourth quarter, and you saw him begin to take over in the fourth quarter. That's where we go, where the Mavericks were able to extend their lead to 92-83 after a Derek Lively dunk in transition. He would loom large in this game, especially down the stretch midway through the third quarter, as the Mavericks started on a 10-5 run in the first 3.5 minutes of the fourth. And midway through the fourth, they still had that 5-point lead with 6 minutes left. And then something interesting started to happen. Mark Dagnall decided, even when it was a two-possession game, that he wanted to try the hack-a-Shaq, hack-a-Lively type of strategy against Derek Lively. Now, we know that Derek Lively is not a great free throw shooter, just above 50% throughout the course of the year. But at the same time, the Thunder thinking, well, let's try to trade possessions by getting him to miss free throws, and then we would have some opportunities to score on the other end. So let's think about it. Mavs up 95-92 with 4 minutes left after a Chet Holmgren second chance basket. The Mavericks were able to make 3 free throws, 2 by Derek Lively, when they decided to employ the hack-a-Lively strategy. In fact, Lively would go on to make 5 free throws in the fourth quarter, making the Thunder pay for the hack-a-Lively strategy. Now, at one point, Jason Kidd removes Lively, but you saw how quickly he had to get him back in there, because the Oklahoma City Thunder were able to get a couple of offensive rebounds, and the Mavericks needed that size in the middle, and that meant Jason Kidd had to trust his rookie to be able to knock down free throws, because they knew they were going to continue to do that strategy, and did give credit to Derek Lively II for making it happen. And in tandem with Kyrie Irving, who, again, began to take over in that fourth quarter. He hit the turnaround jumper over Lou Dort, who has become a bit of a pariah in this series, if you're a Mavericks fan, given how much physicality he brings and questionable tactics at times. Again, we mentioned it a little bit earlier, the MMA-style knee that he put into Luka Doncic, and Mavericks fans not being particularly happy about that. But Irving hitting that jumper over Dort had the Mavericks up by 7 at 88-81 with just over 9 minutes left in the fourth quarter. Then Kyrie Irving extends the lead again back to 7, hitting a beautiful turnaround jumper over Jalen Williams off the right side there to be able to have them up 90-83 with just over 8.5 minutes left in the period. But again, as you heard Irving talk about, feeling out the game and having a great understanding of when he had to take over, and he did so when the Mavericks needed him most. And then one of the crucial moments of the fourth quarter, Luka Doncic, talking about Kyrie Irving. Kyrie Irving throws a bad pass. It gets stolen by OKC, but Luka Doncic gets the steal right back and then takes it to the basket to finish with the layup that had the Mavericks up by 5 at 102-97. And then the Mavericks had to hit free throws. Now, they weren't great in game 3 in terms of their free throw shooting. They went 16-25 for just 64%, but they made enough free throws down the stretch. And again, Lively going 5 of 8 from the free throw line. And I thought a little bit of desperation from the Thunder in that fourth quarter. They had some bad execution where they took off 19 seconds before fouling. I thought some of the game management down the stretch for Oklahoma City was questionable, but the Mavericks, who were 23-9 in clutch games during the regular season, only the Lakers had more wins in the clutch, going 24-9 themselves during the NBA regular season, showed the poise that they have been displaying all season long, the toughness and the mental fortitude to be able to knock down free throws when they had to do it, and they did so. Luka Doncic hitting 1 or 2 free throws with 7 seconds left to ultimately seal it. But Kyrie Irving had the big basket with 39 seconds left. It was a lefty driving layup finish that had the Mavericks up by 5 at 104-99. And again, when you looked at what Kyrie Irving did from a scoring standpoint, he had a three-pointer to push the Mavericks lead. Again, going back to the third quarter with 90 seconds left, that had him up 79-74. But again, the Thunder engaging in that hack-a-lively strategy midway through the fourth, I thought reeked a little bit of desperation, but give Jason Kidd credit. For one, recognize he had to get his rookie back in there to help with size and be able to help with rebounding, but trusting him to be able to knock down enough free throws to get the Thunder out of that particular strategy. And that will be something as we get ready for Game 4 on Monday that will detail is what the Thunder, what kind of adjustments do they have and what kind of tricks could they pull out to possibly deal with the Mavericks, because we're getting to the point in this series where these teams have thrown out a lot of different adjustments to try and find ways to win. And even this strategy by the Thunder can give you an indication where the Thunder may feel they are right now in the series. Again, they've got a lot of talent, and there's still a lot of series left to play. But again, throwing out that particular strategy in this game and it backfiring on them just shows you where the Thunder may be thinking at this point. But the Mavericks defense, much like it was in Game 2, was the story of the fourth quarter where they held the Thunder to just 8 of 24 from the field, 1 of 7, 1 of 8 overall from 3 in Game 2 of the fourth quarter. They held Shai Gilgeous-Alexander in check in the fourth quarter, going just 1 of 6 to SGA for just 6 points. He was a non-factor in the final period, and the Mavericks getting stops when they needed to be able to pull out this game. So you got timely shot making and buckets from Kyrie Irving. You got defensive stops when you needed to. You made enough free throws down the stretch, even with the hack-a-lively strategy, to be able to seal this game. And you got another epic performance from P.J. Washington to be able to take a 2-1 series lead. And now for the Mavericks, all the things that they did in Game 2, we know how well they shot the ball from 3, didn't necessarily do it in Game number 3. But now, as they move forward here, confidence that they can continue to win games in a variety of ways. And if there's one thing that I want you to take from this episode is the fact that the Mavericks have won these games 2 different ways, much like how we saw in the second half of the regular season, the Mavericks winning games in a variety of ways to be able to handle their opponent and be able to play different styles, whether it be a knockout, drag-out type of game with physicality or an up-and-down game where you got to play with pace and knock down three-pointers. The Mavericks can win any type of game that you put them in, and hopefully at some point Luka Doncic's health improves, which I doubt at this point because as deep as we are into the playoffs already, we're seeing him banged up constantly game after game and trying to steal rest for him in the middle of games, and hopefully until you get to Monday, being able to rest as much as possible. The Mavericks are resilient, and they found a way to get it done with what they've been doing all season, especially in the second half of the season, leading with their defense, and they did it once again. And for the Mavericks, you give them a lot of credit. Josh Green was fantastic, especially in that third quarter. He was a plus 15 throughout the game. We obviously talked about what Derek Lively was able to do and being able to handle himself with composure at the free throw line. P.J. Washington, the massive game that he had. Kyrie Irving closing the show. The Mavericks were very, very good in this game. And even with Chet Holmgren, who was blocking everything throughout the course of Game 3, the Mavericks withstood all of it to be able to be in position to win and take a 2-1 series lead. So now for the Mavericks, it's about continuing to build on this confidence and momentum that they've gotten from the last 2 wins and now put themselves in position going into Game 4 to take what would be a commanding 3-1 lead, but you've got to play with the same kind of physical mentality and the same kind of urgency that they have done in the last 2 games, and we will see what that happens in Game 4. We'll have our preview for Game 4 on Sunday. Happy Mother's Day to all the mothers and MFFLs who love the Dallas Mavericks. Shout out to you. We'll have our preview show for Game 4 coming out on Sunday as we get you ready for Game 4 on Monday. But the Mavericks get a 105-101 win at home over the Oklahoma City Thunder to take a 2-1 series lead, halfway home to potentially their second appearance in the Western Conference Finals in the last 3 years. A lot of work to still do, but they're doing that work right now. Really appreciate you joining us here on Inside the Mavs. Again, download and subscribe to the podcast wherever you get your podcast for free. Give it a 5-star rating. Write a review for it while you're there. If you're watching this on my YouTube channel at Kevin Gray Sports, make sure you like and comment on the video as well. Let me know how you're feeling about the Mavericks as we get ready for Game 4. My name is Kevin Gray, Mavericks pre- and post-game host on the Dallas Mavericks Radio Network. This has been Inside the Mavs.